The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald. Well, Donald Trump faces a week today, the midterm elections. What does that mean? It means that the lower house, the House of Representatives, is up for election, and there are some seats, of course, too, up for election in the Senate. But the Senate doesn't really matter. He has a marginal majority there. He's expected, I think, to increase that ever so slightly next time round. But the lower house matters a lot. Now, ever since 1826, with only about two exceptions, in the midterms, the incumbent president tends to lose control of the House. The Founding Fathers wrote the system with a series of checks and balances. Trouble is, most presidents can't govern for the last 2 years of their term once they lose control of that lower house. And the threat that he faces from the Democrats, if they get that majority, they will start impeachment proceedings. Now, it'll get nowhere because it would need 2/3 of the Senate to approve that to remove him as president, but it could gridlock the presidency for at least another year. So what happens next Tuesday really does matter in terms of the future of the Trump presidency. And the issue, and yet we've had Judge Kavanaugh and the row about that and whether he'd done terrible things to women when he was in high school, but that's kind of gone away. The defining issue now of these midterms, with 7 days to go, is the caravan. The caravan of thousands of people who are now travelling up through southern Mexico. Where do they come from? They come from El Salvador. They come from Honduras. They're people that come from poor countries. US Attorney General Jeff Sessions has basically said very few of them would actually qualify in any definition of his as refugees. But Trump is being tough on the caravan. Let's listen to Trump speaking about this on the campaign trail.
As the caravan, and look, that is an assault on our country. That's an assault. And in that caravan, you have some very bad people. You have some very bad people.
Well, bad people, as Donald puts it. So what he's saying is that many of the people in the caravan are undoubtedly poor people coming from countries that aren't doing so terribly well, but there are some bad people mixed in there. So he's launched, in response to it, Operation Faithful Patriot, and he intends to send 5,200 troops down to that border in Texas with Mexico to back up already some National Guard and border agency staff who were there already. Here he was last night on Fox News being interviewed by Laura Ingraham.
When you look at that caravan and you look largely very, big percentage of men, young, strong, a lot of bad people in there. People that are in gangs, we don't want them in this country. If they want to come into the country, you have to apply like other people. We have millions of people coming in. They're applying. They're coming in legally. We have a very strong border. I called up the military. This caravan is not, they're wasting their time. They are not coming into the country.
What's the military going to be able to do? Obama and
fine.
Bush both sent the National Guard.
But
it had no effect.
They're not me. I'm sending up the military. This is the military. And they're standing there. And one thing that will happen.
No lethal force.
When they're captured, we don't let them out. What has been happening, and we're not as of pretty recently, we're not letting them out. What happens is they would catch and release. We're catching. We're not releasing.
Tough man Trump. A tweet from him. Many gang members and some very bad people are mixed into the caravan heading to our southern border. Please go back. You will not be admitted to the United States unless you go through the legal process. This is an invasion of our country, and our military is waiting for you. Well, it's Trump, isn't it? This is classic Trump. It is policy expressed in terms that his supporters will say is strong, it's great, it's got conviction. His opponents will say it's aggressive, it's over the top, it's nasty towards individual human beings. But folks, it is the defining issue of these midterm elections that matter so much to the Trump presidency and the future direction of the USA. So much so that former President Obama is out on the campaign trail attacking Trump for saying what he said.
They're trying to convince everybody to be afraid of a bunch of impoverished, malnourished refugees 1,000 miles away. That's the thing that is the most important thing in this election. Not health care, not whether or not
the most important thing. There we are. Obama says it.
Suddenly, it's this group of folks. We don't even know where they are. They're way down there. Don't fall for that kind of fear mongering.
The most important thing, I said it earlier, and it is the most important thing. This is what's going to determine what happens in the midterms. And folks, what this will come down to, it'll come down to about 20 congressional districts. The average district is about 750,000 voters. It'll come down to about 20 districts, and it will come down to probably 200 to 300 votes in each of those 20 districts. So think about it. The whole future of the Trump presidency, of the USA politics, is down to a few thousand people and how they vote next Tuesday. Believe me, that bit I'm certainly right about. So let me ask you, as Trump sends 5,200 troops down to defend the border with Mexico, saying that migrant caravan must be stopped because there are too many bad people in it, is Trump right to take this action to protect US borders? And if you think he's being way too aggressive towards these poor people, as Obama put it, then call me on 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think he's doing what the leader of any proper country should do. Pity we've not done a bit more of that, and maybe even Angela Merkel too, in which case text to 84850. Or maybe you think, actually, isn't it time America just eased off some of this stuff? The reality is they're still a long way from the border. It's a few thousand in a huge country of 300 million people. If you think really it doesn't matter that much, then tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. Watch us on Facebook. We're live here in London. Comment there too. Let's go to the callers. Let's ask Charles in Bagshot. Is Trump right to send 5,000 troops to the border, Charles?
Hi, thanks for taking my call, Nigel. Absolutely. And just to prove that Remain voters aren't all snowflakes, I'm with Trump 100% on this.
Right.
Look, he's absolutely right. And what irks me the most with these leftists, I won't call them liberals because we confuse liberals with genuine liberals. These are socialists and leftists on the Democrat side. They're not in these areas that are going to be bombarded with this problem, are they? And I always say to my liberal friends in America, well, I'll tell you what, how will you put some people up in your house? Oh, no, we live in a nice area.
Yeah, I know. The sheer hypocrisy of it, Charles. I know.
My solution to this is, Nigel, you know what Donald Trump should do? I would love to see him do it, and I don't think he will. He should say, yep, everyone can come in from anywhere in the world. We won't even check your background. You're more than welcome. Come in. You can pour in. There's only one condition. You have to stay in California. So what you will see Maxine Waters and all these people outraged. We're not having them here. That's what it's the same sort of thing with affirmative action.
Do you think that California, Charles, if that happened, could California possibly start voting Republican?
No, because you see, this is why. Let's be honest. This is the real reason the Democrats want this, because the black voters are deserting them. They're losing their base votes, and this is all they've got left. And the thing is, when I lived in America for a while, and Clinton did this, and there was a lot of them. I did it the right way. I went through the visa system. There's a lot of my friends from India and all over the world, parts of Poland and that, who were on this visa system, and our green cards were screwed up because Clinton wanted to just give amnesty to people that came illegally.
I know. Charles, this is really interesting, isn't it? Because actually, the people that are most upset with this migrant caravan and the prospects of these people getting in are people who have legally entered America and gone through the right steps. That's my view. Charles, I'm with you. I think Trump is right. Whether you like his language or not, or his style or not, I think in travel a direction he is right, and it could win him the midterms. That's my view. What does Sam, a brand new caller from Chicago, think? Hi, Sam.
Hey, Nigel. Great to talk to you.
Welcome to the show. So, what's going to happen in these midterms? Am I right in thinking that this is the defining issue?
Well, I don't know if it's a defining issue. I think there's a lot of issues, but this is like a really big one.
Yep.
I mean, everyone that I've talked to, my family, every one of my friends feel that we need to get the border under control. We need to get all of this just handled. And I think President Trump is really showing a lot of strength by sending the military to the border. I don't know how much effective it's really going to be, because sometimes these groups, when they go into Mexico City, maybe they will spread out and come in smaller groups, or but it's just so curious just to have this caravan come right in the time of midterms. It's clearly someone is just trying to make this an issue, unnecessarily so. And the real victims of all of this, I think, are really the people in the caravans.
Yes.
Because even though...
And I'm sure there are many innocent people in the caravans thinking, hey, here's a chance for a better life. But Trump says...
bad people too.
But Trump says there are bad people too. Do you believe him when he says that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's just generally when you have huge masses of immigration. I mean, like, for instance, I'm Italian. So when my ancestors came from Italy,
yep,
there were a lot of people with the mafiosa coming over. It's just, I think that just happens when you have like huge groups of immigration, like coming from other countries. There's going to be a lot of bad people who are kind of part of the, I guess, maybe lower end of
that's
society.
Just the way,
what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's the way numbers work, I guess. Sam, finally, let me ask you. Chicago's most famous son of modern times is, of course, Barack Obama, and he's out there on the campaign trail, saying to the Democrats, come on, get out there and vote. And he's saying that it's scaremongering. How would you respond to him?
I think he overvalues himself. I think that ever since he got into office, the Democratic Party has been losing seats. I think in 2008, he was, everyone thought the best of him. But as the years went on, everyone began to see that he really wasn't as smart as he says he is. Isn't as smart, certainly, as he thinks that he is. And I think, quite frankly, he's hurting the Democrat Party by getting out there.
Interesting. Sam, thank you for that call. Thank you for listening. And Sam saying, former presidents should not engage like this. They embarrass themselves. Well, we could say the same about a few former prime ministers getting involved with the Brexit debate. On Twitter, I get listening to Trump is so embarrassing. My 5-year-old can string better sentences together. Do you know something? Whether that's right or not, when McDonald says stuff, we all remember exactly what he said. It's called political messaging. Love him or hate him, he's really rather good at it. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:15 and 2. There are 3,000 people from Honduras, Guatemala and El Salvador in a caravan making their way through southern Mexico with a stated intention to break through the American border and enter the USA illegally. Trump, in response, is sending 5,200 troops to go back and back up already the border guards that are there and some other voluntary forces and National Guard, etc. But I'm wondering, is he right to do this, or is it just too much? And is the language he uses about an invasion, is the language he uses by saying among them are some very bad people, is it over the top, or is he absolutely right to defend his borders? Strong passions. And you get, this is classic of the sort of anonymous message I get. Can't you go 2 minutes, Nigel, without encouraging people to hate each other? You're the reason for the rise in hate crimes. Oh, right, thank you. Take some responsibility for your actions. I remember on Newsnight, and by the way, that's a BBC programme, a few weeks after the referendum, a Polish guy in Harlow was killed. There was an altercation. He fell down, banged his head. He was dead. One of those horrid things that can happen. And Newsnight ran a programme interviewing a friend of the Polish guy saying Nigel Farage has blood on his hands. I mean, I simply couldn't even believe, whoever you are, that this was put out on the BBC. A year later, it went to court. Do you know what happened? The Polish bloke was drunk, attacked a black guy, called him all sorts of racist names, got pushed by a friend of the black guy and fell over. Actually, the boot was on the other foot. Did I get a single word of apology from Newsnight? No. And maybe you're one of those people, and you're anonymous, who thinks that actually we're all global citizens and we should all be able to move freely about the globe. But I will not have this argument made that just because we believe in protecting our borders, that somehow that is akin to racism or extremism. It is not, and it's a clear majority view in nearly every nation state in the world. But, that said, you may think Trump is over the top in the way that he does these things. I don't know. I'm going to ask Samantha, a new caller from Sleaford, what she thinks. Good evening.
Hello, Nigel, and thank you for having me on this evening.
Not a bit. So, is Trump right to do what he's doing and to say it the way he does?
Personally, yes, I think he is right. I think that I would expect and would want the president or the leader of my country to make sure that the people that are coming in illegally didn't come in, especially how many people are there. I think he's exactly right. I applaud him. The country that they're coming from is renowned for high crime. I think there's around 9 million people there in a year. There's 7,000 murders.
From Mexico?
From her end, yeah.
Okay. They're coming through Mexico, but hey, all right.
Yeah.
So you believe he's right? Do you think, Samantha, that the language that he uses is sometimes perhaps a bit too strident?
No, I think he says what he thinks. I like his honesty. Okay, some people might not like that or believe what he says. Personally, I like it because he says what he thinks.
Okay.
And I agree with what you're saying about the BBC. It's truly biased.
That episode with Newsnight, I thought the whole thing was absolutely disgusting. But hey, that's one of the things you get if you're in the front lines of politics. And would you like Theresa May to be a bit more assertive about illegal immigration?
Totally. I wish she was stronger and stood by her, by what she believes and not be influenced by people. I wish we had a strong leader.
Okay,
like Trump.
Samantha, so do I. Thank you. Nigel, I'm a super lefty, but I think in principle Trump is right. The Western nations have taken enough. If we're not careful, we'll become bankrupt. Well, and we'll become the refugees, says OJ. Thank you for that. They're illegals. If he didn't stop them, he'd breach his first duty to protect the people of the USA. Chris, I agree with that 100%. I really, really do. Jaffa on Facebook disagrees and says Trump is not right. America is built with immigrants. Yeah, but Jaffa, for the last 100 years and more, they are legal immigrants. And imagine if you are, a family, you're living in Miami, for argument's sake, you've come from Mexico, you've gone through all the hoops, you've come to the country legally, you've got citizenship. I would suggest you would be even more upset about what's happening than people who've been there for 100 years or more. Stephen says, no, he should have sent 50,000. Irene says, I wish our Prime Minister would look after our borders, and I love Trump. Well, our Prime Minister, at the moment, despite the Brexit vote, is, I think, I can't tell because she said nothing, but I think her plan is to maintain complete free movement with the European Union for many, many years to come. And Clive says, and he's right, illegal means you broke the law and face the punishment. Clive, the one exception to that is if people did genuinely qualify for refugee status. But when you look generally at these migrant caravans, whether they're coming up through Europe, whether they're coming from Mexico, what you will see, it's nearly always young men aged 18 to 30. There may be some differences in Mexico, but that's certainly in Europe what we saw. He's absolutely right to protect his citizens. It doesn't matter if they're 5,000 heart surgeons or cancer specialists. It's too many at one time to integrate successfully, says Lara. Lara, America is open to immigration. Lots of people move to America every single year. The president is saying he's ending the lottery system. He's moving it on to the basis of people who've got skills. They're checking their criminal records. They're checking their medical records. And illegal immigrants are not welcome. Folks, I can't see what's wrong with that, even if you don't like the style in which the Donald does these things. I haven't got a problem, personally. Will is a new caller from Sheffield. Good evening, Will.
Hi, Nigel.
So what do you make of Trump's rhetoric?
Well, I'd say the sending the army down there, it seems in a lot of ways to be a political move, speaking to his base and all that. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, no, and Will, I would retort, there is an election 1 week from today, so that's perhaps not that surprising, is it really?
Yeah, exactly. But the other point is, I mean, they need personnel down there, to set up camps and tents and bring water to them and things like that. I mean, you need people to do that. So who's going to do that? What are you going to do? Move them into a flat on the first day, get them a car and a driving license, and send them straight off to California. But the point I'd like to make is that why isn't the United Nations doing anything? Why does everybody point the finger at America and Trump when Guatemala and El Salvador have got the worst crime rates in the world? They've got the highest rates of murders outside of war zones in the entire world. Their prisons are jam-packed full. So why isn't the United Nations doing anything about it?
Good question, Will. The United Nations, which takes a lot of taxpayers' money from across the world, has those amazing offices up on, second in New York.
In New York, and they've got big, huge offices. They're all sorts of money. Guterres lives in a £15 million mansion, so maybe he can go and stay in a flat, and then he can sell that mansion, and then they can spend that £15 million on housing some of these refugees.
I do meet Guterres occasionally. He's in Strasbourg a lot. I'll put it to him, Will, the next time I see him. I'll tell him, Will from Sheffield's asking, why are you in this mansion? You could be somewhere cheaper, and send the money to help the poor. Thank you. Nigel Farage, yet again providing red meat for his xenophobic base. Just a series of statements backed up with zero evidence. Well, Terry, the evidence is very, very clear. If that caravan comes across the border unchecked, they will have entered the USA illegally. Tell me what's wrong about that. Please, Terry, 0345 6060 973. Tell me what bit of that I've got wrong. Matthew's a new caller from Brentwood. Hi, Matthew.
Good evening, Nigel.
So is Trump right? Come on.
Yeah, 100% right. The leading cause of death in Venezuela and Colombia is both murder.
Yep.
It just seems that no one seems to be bringing up that. Like, obviously, in this country, it's something like heart disease, but it's insane that everyone thinks that this is just because he doesn't like Mexicans or something. But it's the whole of South America that's in pretty much a big state at the moment.
So, Matthew, in a way, the fact the murder rate's what it is a reason why many good, innocent people might want to just get out of there and get to America. But equally, his comment that some bad people will be among them has credence with you, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But if he sends down military personnel, they're only going to be, like, you only have something to hide if you've done something wrong. If you're a legal immigrant and you've got all the correct papers and you're fine,
you've got nothing to hide. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
No, Matthew, get the point. Thank you. And of course, he did say in those rallies, I heard him myself, I was there in Mississippi with him, we are going to build on our southern border a great, big, beautiful wall. The trouble with the wall is it's going to cost $35 billion. He's got to get that approved up on Capitol Hill. He's not managed that yet. He has kept a lot of promises, whether you love him or hate him. That one has not yet materialised. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 6:30. President Trump could not be clearer in the face of 3,000 people in a migrant caravan, people coming from Honduras, Guatemala and El Salvador, heading up through Mexico with the intention of illegally getting into America. He has said, this is an invasion of our country and our military is waiting for you. Is he right to defend America's borders and to use that language? 0345 6060 973. Before I get back to your calls on that, 7 men have been found guilty of grooming and exploiting young girls, including one who was sexually abused by at least 100 Asian men before the age of 16. Yep, we're back in Rotherham. 7 men convicted yesterday. I mean, the whole thing is disgusting beyond belief, and there are hundreds more men facing similar charges from that one northern town alone. The scale of this is actually quite unbelievable. Now, I have talked about this over the years. I've tried to do so sensibly and sensitively. I believe the whole thing is a total failure of government policy, a complete lack of integration, a complete misunderstanding. That if different cultures live side by side, these problems are going to happen. Whenever I've attempted to say anything on this, I've been screamed at and shouted at and abused and threatened with death and goodness knows what. But have a think about this. The Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, said this at the Conservative Party conference a few weeks ago.
The scandal of child grooming gangs is one of the most shocking state failures that I can remember. And I will not let cultural or political sensitivities get in the way of understanding the problem and doing something about it.
And he was very, very clear later on, and he said, he made it clear in a further interview that we had a problem with people in this country from Pakistani heritage. Now, he could say that, of course, because he himself was from that heritage. But, folks, can we please stop burying our head in the sands? Can we please stop pretending that we haven't got some really big problems in this country that need to be addressed? Further quick point, and interesting, I'm not saying I believe in it totally, but a poll released this afternoon, carried out in conjunction with Politico by a firm called Hanbury, saying that given the choice, up to 52% of respondents were happy with a no-deal Brexit. And I think you've got a hardening of opinion here, because people are frankly sick to death of this half-in, half-out approach that the Prime Minister is taking. It's one poll. I'm not saying it's gospel, as Arthur Daly would have said. We'll look for more polling data over the course of the next few days. But it is interesting. I think people are beginning to say, let's just leave. And others on the other side saying we have to have a second referendum. But I do think that those that voted leave are beginning to harden in their opinions. Let's go back to Trump. Is he right to try and defend the southern border? Is he right to use the language that he's used? I'm going to ask Oliver, who lives in New York. Hi, Oliver.
Hello, Nigel.
Hello, there.
Nigel, I think Donald Trump must be thinking that Christmas has come early for him.
Well, in terms of the midterms, you mean?
Yeah, sure. And raising, although he's done a huge amount to raise this subject of illegal immigration.
Yep.
Now you can clearly see on the TV thousands of people, visually, that are coming towards the US.
Yep.
And it's for him, it plays into his it plays beautifully into what he's trying to achieve.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with that.
More broadly, it's another sign that this globalist elite simply do not get it. You've been saying it for 20, 25 years that wanting to control your immigration of your own country is not racist, is not xenophobic, and all this sort of stuff. And from a European perspective, you've been called fruitcakes, loonies, closet racist.
And I mean, Oliver, the list is so long, we simply haven't got time on this show to go through it. But Oliver, you're an Englishman, clearly living in New York, which is just about, well, certainly on the East Coast, a very, very liberal city. Do you think that New Yorkers understand what the president's trying to do?
What I sense, I arrived here in August, just before the presidential election in November.
Yep. Back in 2016.
Exactly.
Yep.
And at the time, certainly in New York and in DC, certainly in Los Angeles, no one would talk about Trump. It was in those three major cities. It was just would certainly never raise the subject at a dinner party or in a bar or anything like that. People would never talk about him. I sense that is changing now. You've talked a lot about on your call today, on the show today, about the strident, or let's say forthright language that he uses.
Well, direct. I mean, direct language. You could say, couldn't you?
Sure. I mean, but he wouldn't be Donald Trump if he were to use that language, and he wouldn't be the President of the United States if he wouldn't use that language.
I have to say, I agree with that 100%. Oliver, thank you very much indeed for that call. Richard says it's a pity Merkel didn't protect Germany's border. Well, Richard, if she had, she wouldn't have resigned yesterday after 18 years as leader of the CDU and 13 years, of course, that she has been the Chancellor of Germany. She intends to stay on, but it's going to get harder and harder and harder. Well-heeled lefties keep on telling us that the USA is irredeemably racist, yet confusingly, thousands of foreigners are travelling over 1,000 miles by foot to enter a racist country. Someone better tell them quick, says Dominic in Banbury. I like that. Just turned on LBC. My God, these people, Farage, Trump, sending 5,000 troops for 3,000 unarmed refugees, including women and children. It's all show for the midterms. Check out the definition of invasion. Fools. Well, John Webb, you're absolutely entitled to your view. And you may well say that given that already the National Guard are stationed over that border, and given that there is a border force there already, maybe 5,200 troops is superfluous. You may be right in saying that. But, John, what Trump is doing is sending a message. And it would seem that in response to this, the best spokesman that the Democrats have got is Obama, saying it's all scaremongering. It could just be, John, whether you like it or not, that this is the issue that swings the midterms in President Trump's favour. It's certainly the dominant issue. Of that, there is no doubt at all. Let's go to Verrill, who's calling from Dagenham. Good evening.
Good evening. I've got a problem with you, mate.
Oh, go on.
I am not sure if you're a racist or a wind-up.
Oh, right. Okay, Verrill.
How can you come on LBC, my favourite station, you and that stupid Katie Hopkins, come on this radio station and ruin it with this racist talk.
Hey, Verrill, I'm going to stop you right here. I'm going to stop you right here. I'm going to stop you right here and ask you.
Oh, you want to stop me?
I'm going to ask you to back up. You've made an accusation, and a serious one.
You're a racist.
Right, okay. Verrill, are you going to back it up, Verrill?
Yes, I am.
Well, I tell you what, if you are now going to justify what you've said, I'm really interested in listening to you. So off you go. Nice. Off you go.
Tell me something. How many Indians did they send to stop the white Americans killing off the Indians in America? How many Aborigines sent those soldiers to stop the white man taking over Australia? And now the table is turning. People want to live in peace, and all you want to do is preach hate.
Sorry, Verrill. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to stop you again. I'm going to have to stop you again.
America does not belong to Donald Trump. England does not belong to you.
It belongs to the electorate, Verrill. It belongs to the electorate, Verrill. It belongs.
No way. Listen,
Verrill. It belongs to the electorate. Do you not understand that if people vote for Donald Trump,
more than you do. You're a racist.
Oh,
you cannot
dear.
understand.
Oh dear.
Preach something about slavery. Preach something about how the
I don't know whether you are. I don't know whether you are somebody incapable of holding a conversation, or whether you're just full of prejudice. But how is it if the people,
marry a foreigner, you're all bloody hypocrites. You're racist hypocrites.
We're both. Oh well, so the list is now lengthening, Verrill, which is very interesting.
Yeah,
you have not managed. You have not managed to justify. You have not managed to justify in your screaming, and your ranting. In your screaming and your ranting, you cannot back up.
So spoke English. Do you think that was racist? I was coming from Wales, and
I'm sorry, Verrill. So just tell us. So just tell us. Is Donald Trump wrong? Should America just open its borders up to the entire world?
Excuse me, Donald Trump has opened up the world to gunmen shooting Jews. Donald Trump is talking about...
Right, okay, Verrill, I tell you what, we've tried. We're wasting our time here, aren't we?
This is the worst president that's ever lived.
He's doing very well. The American economy is growing at 4.3%, and he's going to win the midterms next week, Verrill, and he'll do it because he believes in border controls. And if that's what the majority believe in a democratic system, don't they have that right?
He's got no right.
No right. Right, voters, Verrill says you have no right, if you believe in border controls. Well, there we are. It's 6:46. A week to go to the midterms, and Donald Trump is absolutely saying this caravan of 3,000 people is not coming into America. He's sending 5,000 troops to stop it from happening. I get on Twitter, the first responsibility of any government is to protect its people and its borders. The Democrats are royally messing this up. Matthew, I think the Democrats are royally messing this up. Others take a different view. Of course he isn't. It's desperate dog whistling to pick up voters before next week. No surprise you're joining in. These people are peacefully and legally claiming asylum. Are they? I thought their intention was to enter America illegally, and if they do claim asylum, they won't get it, because coming from a poor country doesn't qualify. You know, a refugee is somebody who is in fear of their life and their liberty because of their race, their religion, their beliefs, or their way of life. Just because you come from a poor country, I'm sorry, doesn't qualify on its own. Let's go to Chelmsford and speak to Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine.
Hello, Nigel. I just want to make the last call. But anyway, going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly he seems to believe that if you even criticise immigration, that somehow this is a sin, and somehow that's hate-filled. But I just don't think that's logical, Lorraine, in any way at all.
Well, the only hate that I heard was coming from him, but still...
There was a bit of that, I agree with you. Lorraine, is Trump's language right, Lorraine, or is it over the top, or is it tough for us as British people to see the American context here?
No, I completely agree with Donald. I don't really think that a lot of people actually realise the issue here. Obama's last speech at the UN before he stepped down, he turned around and said that he believes in open borders. Now, this is what we're up against. The Democrats, Clinton, Obama, as he admitted, they believe in a world without borders. What Trump is up against is globalisation, which is the New World Order. They want to bring in a world with no borders, against sovereign, independent, free and democratic countries.
Lorraine, if you'd said that to me 10 years ago, I'd say you were a conspiracy theorist. I would now agree with you completely, because that clearly is the agenda. So, Lorraine, would you like to see more of that sort of policy being taken on here by the UK government?
Well, we all know that we've had the Marrakesh Treaty signed this year, which was the follow-up to the Barcelona Treaty, which is opening up Europe to African countries in the Middle East. We know that the influx across from the Mediterranean is being funded, as is this caravan that's being driven through Central America. These are being fed and watered and given lifts, and they're given places to sleep. It's all being funded.
Well, do you know what, Lorraine? One thing I'm fascinated by, and I'm not even going to speculate at this stage, but somebody is helping this caravan, somebody is paying for it, somebody is providing money, food and water, and I'm not even going to speculate at this stage who it is, but we will find out. Lorraine, I thank you. I'm going to move on. I'm going to go to Kareem, who's calling from Ealing. Hi, good evening.
Hello, Nigel. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So, I mean, clearly Trump's language, and, you know, I'm a supporter of Trump, but I would say his language is incredibly strong. But in principle, I think he's right.
I think in principle, look, I'm not going to debate whether or not I think these people are, whether or not they're good people coming abroad or not, because that's a separate topic. But in terms of them coming in, technically they are coming in illegally. And although the word invasion is strong, I do think it is a bit over the top. And, of course, like you said, the elections are coming up, so he's trying to, make a point and win voters.
Yep.
But with that being said, it is technically an invasion. If someone tries to enter your land, which is yours, and they don't have the right to be there,
okay,
that's technically, by the dictionary definition, an invasion.
Yeah, I mean, we think of invasion as being absolutely overwhelmed, but you're saying, in fact, the word can mean a small number or a big number.
Exactly. I'm not saying that the number is a huge number, because it isn't like when you think of invasion, you think of millions of people coming at you from all directions. That kind of is an invasion in most people's minds.
Yeah, okay. No, Kareem, you made the point. It is an invasion, big or small. Thank you. Billy from Glasgow says, Nigel, you're patient, and thanks for allowing a caller to have a different view. I will always allow callers to have a different view. I do struggle a bit when they're screaming and ranting and raving, but we want to hear different points of view, because that's kind of how democracy wins. Stuart on Facebook thinks that he said, I'd give Mexico a telling off for allowing them that close to my border. Stuart, they're still not that close. That's the interesting thing. They're still actually in southern Mexico. But Trump does want Mexico to do more to stop this from happening. Nigel, your pro-Trump stance is indefensible. Whether his policies are right or wrong, his aggressive rhetoric, it's that fuels right-wing extremists and legitimises their hateful agenda. Don't be so gung-ho and think about regular folks and their suffering. Dave, I've always said I support Donald Trump because I believe his direction of travel is right. Even I find his rhetoric and his means of putting stuff across at time, it's pretty over the top. But then we are here on this side of the pond. It's different in America. What does Neil in Manchester think? Good evening, Neil.
Hi, Nigel. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Well, huge passions on this subject, Neil.
Yes,
but
course.
let's get back to basics. Take the rhetoric out. Take the passion out. Is he right to try and stop a caravan of 3,000 illegal migrants coming into America?
I think he's absolutely right. And on a bit of a wider point, I would say that his views are echoed across much of the globe at the moment, including in the UK. And I think I myself have to say that, I'm conservative with a small c. I've got certain views about the immigration issues within the UK, and if you bring that up, you're instantly labelled as being some sort of xenophobic racist.
Oh, yes.
You, as we've just seen on the show tonight.
Yep.
And I think ultimately these views have been here all the time within the UK and also probably within the US as well. And it's only recently that people have actually come up from the political radar, and now they feel like they've got the confidence to actually express themselves.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Neil, I think that's right. I'm going to let you go. I've got time for one last very quick caller, Geoffrey from Wembley. Good evening, Geoffrey.
Hello there. How's it going?
It's very interesting. I mean, huge emotions. I mean, to me, it's very simple. Is it right to defend your borders? To me, the answer is yes. What do you think, Geoffrey?
Well, so the thing is, for me, just to put it on the table, I'm a Remainer, so people can think what they want about that. But in this circumstance itself, talk about just this particular topic, he's completely right to protect his own border. It might be a bit heavy-handed. I know the reporter said something before in the tape that you played, which he didn't answer, which was something about, is it lethal force or something like that, and he didn't answer it. Maybe he didn't hear it. But regardless, protecting your border is kind of key. Because,
absolutely. Geoffrey, we're completely out of time, but I want to say this. You are my favourite Remainer. Thank you very much indeed. And folks, the argument is, let this caravan in, do nothing about it, and then there'll be more. Mark my words, this is the issue that is going to define the midterm elections next week. History says Trump will lose, but you know what? He's very good at surprising people. Thank you for listening. I'm back tomorrow night at 6. At 10 o'clock tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick, but up next, it's Ian Dale.
He's also very good at claiming victory when he's lost.